Welcome back to the Spa Sisters podcast. We are kicking off this new year with lots of new interviews. And today we have the wonderful Mark Smith with us, otherwise known as the Spa Man. So welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, and really wonderful to be a part of the podcast today.
Thank you. So, you've got a wealth of experience that we are just waiting to hear from you about. And I suppose really the starting point would be is did you get into this business, into this freelance journalism in what would be traditionally a very perhaps female dominated world, and then you've been going now since I think we said more than 18 years. So tell us about your journey and what drew you to this world.
So it's, I suppose, not a traditional journey either, and you're right, it is traditionally very female dominated. I trained as a lawyer. Well, I've got a law degree in Australia, but then took off, realizing I didn't want to be a lawyer, and came to live in London. And I got a job selling makeup at a really cool cinema, film, and theatre makeup supplier called Screenface. It doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. And I started doing the PR for them, and I managed one of the stores, and I realized that there was sort of this other world happening out there. No one never taught me that to be a PR or even a journalist was a possibility. That sort of led into becoming a freelance PR for a while, and I worked with an agency. But conversely to that, I worked with a journalist, and she sort of taught me the ropes of journalism. I wrote about makeup. We worked on a magazine called War Paint, which was really specific to the trade, B2B. And then conversely, I wrote about men's grooming and skincare. So, and that sort of, I suppose, that side led me into more of that wellness space. So I've been writing freelance for 26 years, I think, but more in men's grooming and skincare. A chance meeting with Sarah Camilleri, who is the editor and owner of European Spa Magazine, back in maybe, I can't really remember, it was the early 2000s. And she said, would you like to go and review a spa? And I said, yes, because I'd never been to one. I went, it was Thoresby Hall in, I think, Northamptonshire, or somewhere in the sort of northeast. And I absolutely loved it. Now, of course, who wouldn't? And and it was really interesting as well, because my partner, who's my husband now, Carl, and we just really loved the experience. I remember doing a mud resort and think it was one of the coolest things ever, which you don't see many of them around. And I would love to see more. I think a mud resort is a really great experience. And that sort of rolled on, and I worked with Sarah on Spa Secrets magazine, which was a consumer-facing title. It doesn't exist anymore. She left, did something else. I stayed for a bit and then went off and did other things. And then in 2012, I went fully freelance and just approached Sarah and said, you know, I'm available, I can do all of these things. And she said, you know, I've got an opportunity here, which was really small at the time. And over the years, it's grown, and I'm now deputy editor of the magazine. And I also head up the events side of things and also media partnerships. But conversely, I've also been writing freelance. So during that period, I've written for Asia Spa Magazine, I've written for Vogue, Tatler, Telegraph, The Good Spa Guide, Men's Health, Men's Fitness. So lots of different things. But predominantly now I write for European Spa.
And do you see then that there is more interest from the male spa goer to learn more about spa and what it can do for them?
I think I've certainly seen a huge shift recently.
There's been a lot of talk about men's mental health as well. Do you see that as being something that the spa space can help with?
I've certainly seen a big shift. So when I first started going to spas, you would rarely see men. Like really rarely. In Europe, continental Europe, much more so, and a lot more on their own. and they would be traveling for, I suppose, their health. So these would be health resorts.
Mm.
In the UK, perhaps in the last 10 years, but particularly the last 5, it's much more common, in fact very regular, to see men in a spa, usually with their partner.
Mm.
But increasingly in London-based spas, you'll see men in spas on their own.
Mm.
Now, I think that that's partly driven by mental health, because they realise that spa has a place to help them.
Mm.
That's also driven by a lot of other things. There's this whole shift in what wellness is,
Yeah.
the growth in demand for biohacking, whatever
Mm.
you make of it, whatever you think of it, and whatever you believe is correct, it is
Mm.
driving interest in these alternative therapies,
Mm.
cold plunging, saunas, I suppose IV therapy, compression therapy, those kinds of things. And I think that is a good thing, because it's we know the benefit of spa, and we know that it can have huge impacts on our physical and our mental health. So getting more men into that space is really key. So I've seen a huge shift, a huge shift. There's some bits. I don't think spas deal with men very well.
Right.
That's, and I know you've got some questions coming up that may lead
Mm.
into that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's always been a bit of a slight niggle for me.
Mm. Okay. Well, I suppose that really brings me to my next question. That's something that's really always intrigued Carly and I about you, is this mix that you have with your very successful global spa journalistic business, but then also with the wonderful community that you've created called Kalm Horizons and the sessions that you offer. I mean, how do you see that being either different or similar to what you're seeing in the spas? Is there a crossover happening?
We certainly see mindfulness in spas. So
Mm.
Calm Horizons is a mindfulness-based wellbeing sessions, I call them. So I practice daily and have practiced pretty much daily since 2011, because I was very highly stressed. I thought I was having a mini breakdown, and I pretty much was on the verge of it. I also thought I had cancer because I had a pain in my stomach. My
Mm.
doctor said it's not cancer because they did the checks. You're stressed. So she sent me off for counselling. I said at the beginning of that counselling, I wanted to learn techniques to manage my situation.
Yeah.
And I was partnered with an amazing guy who taught me mindfulness. So then fast forward, pandemic, I decided I wanted to do something different. I developed this concept around the sea called Kalm Horizons. And the way that sort of the crossover is, I drew on certain techniques that had really connected with me from my spa travels.
Mm.
So for me, aromatherapy is essential.
Yeah. Mm.
Instantly,
Yeah. Mm.
oils work. And I know that. So I do some work with aromatherapy associates. I use their oils. Breath work is also really key. So I incorporate simple breath work into the practice, and sound. So I use singing bowls and gongs. I might incorporate other bits of sound as well. So for my journeys around the world, there are 3 things that have connected with me so deeply that I wanted to incorporate those into sessions I deliver for people. People come to me because they're stressed and anxious,
Mm.
predominantly. Sometimes there's other stuff going on in the background.
Yeah.
Occasionally they will reveal that, but not always.
Mm.
The one-to-ones, it's very different because you work with people on a very different level. What I see with people that come to me and do, because I do classes indoors in studios, I do sessions on the beach where we meditate to the sound of the waves, and also in saunas as well. What I'm finding with that is people want to be heard or listened to. They don't know how to deal with the stuff that's going on in their heads. So I just give them some coping strategies and techniques, and they're not, I won't say they're not really rocket science. They've been utilised for thousands of years in Buddhism. Breathwork's been utilised for thousands of years in different modalities. Aromatherapy is an age-old tradition as well. But people don't know how to access them.
Hmm. I mean, you talk about the biohacking and coming back to these very simple practices. I mean, are we moving away too far away from the essence and the core of what wellness is and well-being can be with very simple things, and we're looking for this fast, quick, I would say the quick solution without actually looking at the root cause?
Oh, I think absolutely. People don't want to not always address the problem,
Mm,
they just want a solution.
yeah.
Sometimes the solution is addressing the problem, or at least facing it. I also sometimes think we overcomplicate wellness or delivery of therapies. I know that when I sit on the beach and look at the sea, everything drifts away. So that's that connection with nature. And that could be in the forest, that could be anywhere that connects with nature. So connecting with nature, breathing, connecting with other people. And I see this in the sauna sessions that we do, because people would love to connect and feel part of an experience. These are very simple things that can be done almost for free. Now, then we've got into that biohacking space, they usually come with some kind of technology. Cold plunging doesn't. You know, I swim in the sea all year. Saunas are very cheap, or can be. But when we're moving into that biohacking and bringing in sort of the touchless technologies, that can then change it up to a different level.
Yeah. Um, just going back to what you mentioned briefly about your own personal experiences, what drove you to turn to these practices, very simple practices,
Mm.
and even just speaking to you, I feel very calm. You've
Mhm.
got that energy about you, so it's very clear that you're practicing that yourself as well as teaching. But do you think that a lot of the people within our industry, hospitality spa industry, are um, struggling themselves because actually our industry is very fast paced. And
Mm.
I see this a lot with people that I work with and encounter at networking events that are we actually looking after ourselves as effectively as we should be if we are then going out and selling or
Mm,
enrolling people in this idea of wellness when I always come back to this, I've spoken about it with Julie at events before, how spa and wellness are kind of merging together, but we need to sort of get them aligned
Mm.
because a spa experience is very different to what I would say a wellness experience is. If we're going
mm,
to build that into a business, how do we make space for our industry professionals to feel well? Because I feel like not everyone feels that great, even though we're preaching it.
I completely agree. And I think that there's very little space given for, I call them spa professionals,
mm.
to invest in their own health and well-being.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I see this a lot at conferences, because, I love going to the gym, or, and I love to have a swim in the morning. When you're at a conference, you rarely see other wellness professionals utilising those facilities. I know conferences have got other purposes, but I sometimes think, oh, where is everyone? Aren't they
Mm,
here? Or when I go out for a walk through the grounds of a beautiful property, I might run into one or two other people. And I just think, oh, maybe people either aren't prioritising it enough. It's a highly stressful role to be a spa director. It's something I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do,
Mm.
and it leads to burnout.
yeah.
And we see the
Mm.
churn of incredible spa leaders who get to the point in their career that they feel that they've got to do something else, and they predominantly then move into brand relations,
Yeah.
I'll call it, or brand sales or brand development.
Mhm.
They're taking great
But even
knowledge, but they're not. That knowledge is leaving
Yeah.
but even that actually comes with its high stress demands, in the supplier side of the business,
completely.
everyone extremely under pressure in that industry as well. But I guess when you say about you felt like you were having a breakdown in what did you say, 2011, was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Is that because you were in that environment and you, same reason, you were working, traveling, overdoing it and burning out? Is it, were you in that situation much like
It
others
was,
feel now?
um, I suppose I was putting a lot of pressure under myself from a work point of view. I wasn't traveling
Mm.
so much because I was still predominantly doing PR then, public relations. But I'd taken on some community, what would you call, community campaigning. So on top of my day job, I was
Mm.
campaigning to save a local library, which
Mm.
was amazing, and we saved it, and it was great. But it was a really, really, because I took it on as a personal kind of quest, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then when you put yourself up above the parapet,
Mhm.
especially in this age of social media, it was the early point in which I started getting attacked, and I had no tools in which to deal with
Mm.
that. So I
Mm.
took those issues on internally and internalized
Yeah.
them, which was where the pain came in the stomach.
Mm. Yeah. And a lot
Uh,
of people do have, they don't have that boundary between professional work and personal effect.
mm,
It merges, especially in this industry when it's so heart-led, that the boundaries are
completely.
always quite blurry. Um, yeah. I mean, with your Calm Horizons offering, I
Mm,
feel like there is great potential there to utilize that for our spa professionals.
mm,
If you could implement one industry-wide change to improve the spa business as a whole ecosystem, so from the therapists that are the laborers, I would say, and the
mm.
healers, to the strategy and the leadership, what would it be? What would you say that people need?
Um, well, I've got two things actually. I think people on the whole need more time and space to invest
Mm.
in their health and well-being,
Yeah.
and that's across the whole spectrum. But I also believe that we need to invest more in therapist massage training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have treatments all of the time, and I had many of them over the course of my career. I've had hundreds to thousands of them. I've never, I've lost count. I've had so many.
Mm.
And you have a lot of incredible, life-changing, profound experiences, but there are many, many more neutral to not very good experiences.
Mm. Mm.
And because massage is around 70% of a spa business's business,
Mhm.
massage is usually what lets it down.
Yeah.
And I often
Yeah.
come away feeling a bit disappointed, and it's not the fault of the therapist
No.
because they're being asked to do incredibly challenging
Mm.
work,
Mhm.
and they're not always equipped with the skills, especially the younger women, particularly,
Mm.
because we're all bringing, as individuals, as clients, as guests, we're all bringing a whole heap of troubles with us.
Yeah.
And I believe, energetically, that the therapist will feel that. And they
Yeah.
take that on,
Mhm.
they take it.
I do.
Even if you don't communicate it with words,
Mm.
they will still get that.
Mm.
And you're doing that
Mhm.
4 or 5 times a day from
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
different people. Yeah, I just think that needs to be wholly worked on and invested in, because that's what lets it down more often than
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Again, therapist burnout, we've said it so many times, is real. And I'm going to say this, but I really feel for the guest that is the last massage of the day,
Hmm?
because I think by then the therapist is done. I can
Yeah.
speak from experience as well. It takes a lot, and I'm a practicing therapist still, and I have to really use my energetic kind of skills to drive, a great experience every time, and that's from doing it for 20 years. So these girls that
Mm-hmm.
are 19, 20, of course the experience a guest receives, I totally relate to what you're saying, and it just seems like there's a strategy that could be put in place for team members to support each other as well.
Mm.
Um, with those tools that you talk about, because yeah, we are running thin on therapists.
Mm.
Yes, and we
But
need
Um,
it's
more.
but it's the time thing as well, isn't it? It's about allocating the time to invest in your stuff. It's being allowed to have that time.
Mm.
To be able to say, we've got these quotas as well that obviously, people are respecting, trying to respect the massage quotas. We've been talking about this on the podcast, but it's also about the other parts. So it's also about giving them time to also work on their emotional intelligence. It's about working out how are they looking after themselves, because we see as well as educators, we go into spas and we see how they're grabbing some food on the go, but it's not always going to be the kind of food that's going to serve them well, that's going to give them the energy and give them perhaps the healing as well they need if they've
Mm.
got muscle strain, or they're chugging Red Bull just to keep them through a shift. So there's quite a lot of work I feel that still needs to be done on supporting and helping and encouraging people and coaching perhaps a little bit more on, if you would like to have longevity in this industry as a therapist, it's not just about the skills that you learn of being able to deliver a massage, but it's also about how are you caring for yourself and being able to have that time and space and access to that.
Completely.
mm,
And when someone approaches you before you're having a treatment, you get a feel. You
Yeah.
get a feel for where it's going to be heading. But as
Mm.
soon as the hands are on my body, within 10 seconds, I know where
Yeah.
what I'm in for.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the protocol or what the brand
Mm.
is, you
Mm.
know with what
Yeah.
with the feeling of intention that comes with those
Mm.
first few
Yeah.
massage strokes.
Yeah.
And I was at a spa in the last sort of 4 weeks, no, 8 weeks, and the spa manager told me that therapists are doing 8 hours of massage a day, and
Mm.
I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't actually say anything because I was quite surprised
Mm.
that that still happens.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it does, and that
Mm.
property won't be the only one that's doing that.
Mm.
And
Have you ever actually had to stop a treatment and get out out of the room?
I
Or are
have
you
actually, but that was partly it wasn't because it was so bad. Although I have had to give people different direction. But I was having a treatment that was on a heated bed, and I was getting really hot, and I'd had a lot of treatments because I'd gone to a spa for 2 days, and sometimes you might get one treatment, sometimes you'll get 12. And it was one of those ones where they booked me in for everything. So I'd been pummeled and scrubbed and squirted and squashed and everything.
Uh,
And so I think it was a culmination of that point.
mm.
And I started lifting myself up on bed and I said, I've just got to get out because it was too much in terms of touch. Because you, as a guest, I believe you take the energy of the therapist as well.
Mm.
do?
So
Me.
yeah, I had to stop that. I've also
Wow.
had a point where, just in terms of successive spa trips, I got to the point where I didn't want to be touched anymore.
Mm.
I'd had so many treatments from so
Yeah.
many different people in so many different modalities. I
Yeah.
think I then had to, it was about 4 or 6 weeks, I didn't want to be touched by, in a spa setting for
Yeah,
that time.
I
Intriguing.
get that. Yeah, because it is a very personal experience, and if you feel kind of not violated, but like it's your energy's almost it can work the other way. It can
Mm.
be
Mm.
quite damaging for your energy.
And you're very
Wow.
vulnerable as well,
Yeah, you
in
are.
every single one of those situations,
Mm.
and especially if they're more medical. And I remember that one of the properties was very medical, so I was having blood taken out of me, I was having my blood re-injected into me, and I was having
Mm.
scrubs, I was being squirted,
Yeah.
with those big hoses,
I know
the old
that's
school.
it.
Oh God, what
Gosh,
else did I had
I
so
have bad
much
memories of
done
this.
at that place,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was interesting. It was
Mm.
interesting.
Wow. Um, just going off piece slightly then. You obviously are the other extreme of what maybe a standard sort of guest goes into a hotel, maybe I don't know, 3 times a year, say for a spa
Mm.
break or something. Um, they I always believe it starts with the sort of the physical barriers that need to be broken through down before you can get into that energetic thing. So I find a lot of guests that I work on are just so physically exhausted and physically
Mm.
tight first.
Mm.
That's kind of the first step in a way. I suppose you've been through that whole process where, you know, you I guess you've explored all avenues of healing, right? Would I be right to say that?
Yeah,
You've
pretty
gone,
much.
you've
Pretty much.
explored every kind of avenue.
There's a few things I probably haven't done, but I've done pretty much everything on offer.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. And do you
and
feel that there's a rabbit hole that people can go down? Because I often wonder about I suppose the more vulnerable people seeking out therapies and treatments, and then it becomes almost like a toxic habit or a something that's actually not too good for them. There's no answers at the end of that massage. They're still searching for the next thing. Do you
mm,
think that that is a thing, or can you never get enough massage and therapies and
no,
healing?
I think massage is different because there's the physical element of release, and I think we all need that. One thing, and I've been pondering this more recently, is how many retreats are enough? How
Mhm.
many times can you question and I'll say drag up because or review or revisit the past?
Mhm.
How many times do you need to unpick that? Because I know
Yeah,
people go on multiple retreats,
yeah.
and not every, and I'm not saying every retreat does this because it could be to nurture, it could be to cocoon, it could be to restore, rebalance.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them will delve into the past to unpick and rebuild. Now that's very very top line description,
Yeah.
but people are doing that a lot,
Hmm.
and I think, and there's a few individuals that I can think of where I just think, how much shadow work do you need to do? It,
Oh,
it can't be
yeah.
that it can't be that dark, and if it is, then well, yeah, I just you go on a week's retreat and you do
Yeah.
I don't know what you do, whatever you do, something really deep,
Mm.
and then you go back and you're doing it next year, or you're doing two a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an issue potentially around, I'll say, over retreating.
Mm.
Mm.
There's also
Absolutely.
the follow-up after a retreat, though. I think that's also a part that is super important. You mean, if you're going to open up a gateway, it's where is the person going to go after the retreat?
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's perhaps a space
Support.
that I don't know how many people offer those follow-ups after that, whether that treat the retreat's done, you're on your own kind of thing. I think that can be quite, depending on the
Can
kind of
lead
retreat, that could be quite, potentially, I'd say dangerous, but it can lead
mm,
people to be very, as you say, very vulnerable
on-
still.
yeah.
And there's a really
Absolutely.
interesting example I read in the paper. A woman, and I think she went to do yoga teacher training. And I'll say in India, but it might not have been, but it was with a British-based company. Um, and it invited people to reflect on their childhood. This person did in a particularly emotional and vulnerable state. It opened up,
Mm.
we'll call it a can of worms, and she didn't feel that she was supported because the team didn't really look after her.
Mm.
It caused her severe emotional trauma, and she sued that company and was successful.
Mm.
So it's about that support, as you say, Julie. Post, it doesn't all
Mm.
just happen in the week.
No.
Sometimes that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's making sure retreats are handled well, and we know that spas are doing more retreats because they've
Yeah.
said that there's good business there, which is important.
Mm.
But everything needs to be handled really, really
Yeah.
carefully.
It depends on the level of skill set and experience the retreat facility
Therapist.
have, because I do feel like a lot of words are being flown around to kind of promote a retreat, but really, are these experts in their field? Are they qualified professionals that are
Mm.
delving into trauma and that kind of thing? It's nothing to be frivolous about, it's
Mm.
No.
you need to be qualified to deal with that level of
Yeah.
um unraveling, if you like. But
Mm.
I do find that without sounding cynical, social media can be a hub for that. You don't really know who's qualified and who's not. So all
Completely.
the buzzwords and the visuals and the beautiful imagery can sell a dream, but actually really the most important thing is that person qualified to be doing what they're doing, and that's where a lot of vulnerable people get drawn to. This is a pool of possible toxicity.
Mm.
So I do feel like there's no regulation to it, and that could be an issue in the future. Maybe spas can control that a bit more and have a bit more of a regulated experience. But I go off on a tangent. I to really summarize actually about, I think what you're doing with Calm Horizons is really, it feels really meaningful and effective and sustainable for people. It feels like a very valuable thing that you're doing. Um, I suppose if you could craft a dream spa experience, blending your Calm Horizons approach with traditional spa elements,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know what would be in that experience.
So for me, incorporating in some kind of massage. Now, say, a traditional 1 hour Calm Horizon session is introduction. I'll set the scene. We'll go into breathwork, aromatherapy, which calms the central nervous system down. Then we go into the mindfulness, and we usually do some intention setting of some kind or visualization, and then the singing bowls, and come out and reflect on the session. Now, if I'd extend that with more spa experiences, sauna is really key because there's this release that happens
Mm.
physically and mentally, plus the connection. I think some kind of massage. Now, that could be to conclude as a treat at the end. I'm a
Mm.
huge, huge fan of the hammam. I'm not sure how
Me
we'd
too.
incorporate that, uh, but there's something, and in fact, that could be the last thing instead of the massage. There's something about being scrubbed to in an inch of your life, but then being washed like a baby
Oh, yes.
and cocooned.
Heaven.
I've had, and again I say I've had many many treatments in my life, but
Yeah.
there's two hammam experiences that visually stay in my mind, and they were coming up to 9 or 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
One in particular in Bodrum at the Mandarin Oriental,
Mhm.
because I was washed and bathed and clean, but I was also cocooned. I was held,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just the holding of the space that we talk about. I was physically held. Now
Mm.
we haven't been washed like babies since we were babies. So
Wow.
so for me, a hammam is really really
Mm.
special. And if I ever
And
get the
it's very
chance, that's
religious, isn't it? A hammam is a very religious, spiritual practice. People go
mm,
weekly to be cleansed, from a religious point of view. Yeah, I think it's nothing, it's not new in that sense.
no,
It's
again,
almost
thousands of years old.
compulsory. Yeah. I mean, there's a question there of are the people that go to hammams for spiritual reasons regularly, they are probably, I'd say, more connected with their mind and their mental health, and their
Mm.
purpose in life. And that kind of makes you question that you have people lost their way a little bit, lost their
Mm.
purpose. Um,
Yeah.
And
Arts can
purpose
offer so much more.
and purpose is something we're hearing more from industry leading lights, and its
Yeah.
role in longevity,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Mm.
which I and some of them argue that it's more important than the health and the medical side of things. And we know,
Yeah.
that if we have purpose in life, we have drive and we have a reason to get up in the morning.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there's a lot in that. I think this whole idea of purpose,
Mm,
um, and and not just purpose, but belief. Now, I'm not religious
Mm.
in any way, shape, or form, but I'm really
Mm.
interested in this idea of prayer as a meditation.
mm,
Because
Mm.
when you pray, you're doing very, very, very similar things to what you do when you're doing a mindfulness practice.
Yeah,
So I think there's a
very
really
intentional.
interesting crossover there.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow. Spirituality in spa.
And
is
we're hearing more about that too.
Mm,
Anna Bergstrom from Six Senses was talking about the role of spirituality and longevity, which
yeah.
is in our handbook, which is coming out later this month. It's
Wow.
it's 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 great to hear because there's so much obsession around
Mhm.
longevity and medical wellness. It has
Yes.
a really important place, but for
And I
me,
think,
I'm more in
yeah.
touch with the spirituality.
mm,
I think people are scared to use that word as well, aren't they? Healing and spirituality, because it could ruffle feathers and not sort of fit a box, a
Mm.
kind of traditional route that a hotel spa might go down. But I think that currently in this day and age, we are all um, aware, much more heightened, much more aware of the pain, the suffering in the world, and what part we have to play in our own happiness and purpose. So I don't think spirituality or healing is a word to be scared of in our
mm.
spa industry.
No, we need to embrace it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, I mean, your conversation was really wonderful, and you've got a wonderful energy that you've brought to us today. I think, Julie, can you agree with me when I say that?
Absolutely. I'm sort of like as chilled as I've been for a long time.
So we'll be coming to one of your Calm Horizons
Absolutely.
sessions
Next
pretty
time I'm in
soon.
Lansing, yeah, I'll be
Yeah, oh,
there.
bless you, bless you.
Thank
Yeah,
you
no,
so very
it's
much.
good. It's good. It's good to be able to,
And
you know, give something back as well.
Yeah.
That's something I really
Mm,
love.
yeah, we
Well,
do too.
no.
thank you for inviting me on. It's been a great joy.
Thank you, Mark. And if anyone is wanting to learn more about our podcast, you can visit our YouTube channel at Spa Sisters Podcast, also on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn for more interviews, lots more content, lots of amazing stories from wonderful minds in our industry. But Mark, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure and take care.
Thank you.